Hello, Tammy. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great, Nate. How are you? Welcome back.
I am
A little hiatus, I guess.
not bad, but I feel like I've been all over the place in the past 3 weeks. And like, what day is it? It's Monday, right?
It's Monday. It's time to do the show, for sure.
I almost forgot. Right? It's like all the work you and I were doing to make sure we had content for tonight. Work was over. Like we ate dinner, and I'm like, what am I doing tonight? I can't.
What am I missing?
Oh yeah,
we gotta do the podcast.
We've got a show tonight.
Yeah.
So.
What have you been doing for the past 2 weeks? I know you had some work stuff.
Yeah, I had a conference to go to for work, and it's funny. We'll talk about it later in the news because I put an article. I dug up an article about this thing, but it was in Vegas. It was for a tech company that nobody listening to this show probably cares about. But I walk into the conference center, and in like the floor, like the common area, they have obviously a desert racer.
Oh, sweet!
Right there. I'm like, what is this?
Am I at the right conference?
Yeah, it looked like a cross between like an Ultra 4 build and a Baja build. It had at least 37, maybe 40-inch tires. They were huge.
Wow.
I shouldn't say huge. They were big. But it had like a aerodynamic body to it where desert racers usually have that, but Ultra 4 cars usually have more of a buggy look.
Right.
So it was like this weird hybrid thing. And I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. And later in the week, I went back and looked at it, and here it's electric.
Electric is like, it's coming fast. Fast.
Yeah. So, and this one literally is coming fast. So, but yeah, it was pretty neat. And like I said, we'll talk about it a little more, that particular vehicle a little more. But
now that you're talking about electric, I just want to my son has a Tesla.
Yeah.
And he was driving it yesterday and he hit a bump, I guess maybe too hard. And all of a sudden the whole thing shut down.
Oh no.
And so he called AAA, and regular AAA can't pick it up because it's a Tesla, and to get into it, you have to know the special things, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
So he finally contacted Tesla, got it towed, and he's trying to make an appointment at the dealer. Well, his appointment was already made. The car made its own appointment.
The car's like, I'm broke, help.
I was like, wow. I thought that was cool. Anyway, it's
kind of
future.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's the future of our lives.
Like not the fact that it made its own appointment, it's the fact that he didn't know it made its own appointment. That's the creepy part, right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't ask, it didn't confirm. It's just like, you need an appointment, and I've already picked a place for you to get it.
Yep. So I just it reminded me of Kit from Knight Rider.
Right. He knows best. He knows best.
Well, I was on an adventure. Well, we were gone. My son came to visit, my younger son, and we went to Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. We just did the regular tourist stuff. But the creepy thing is, I didn't realize it until we got back, is the day before we got to Yellowstone. And Yellowstone is built on a big caldera, which is like, I guess it's kind of like a volcano type thing. And, it has the geysers and the hot water. Mm-hmm. But the day before we got there, there were 4 earthquakes in that area. And, that's where they say the end of the world is going to happen because it's going to blow up and we're going to all die because the sun will be covered from all the explosion. But anyway, that was kind of creepy to find that out. We were there
on that happy note, right?
Yes.
The world will end, the skies will turn black.
But if anybody out there, it's a great trip to do, a great overlanding trip to do, because there's cool little places you can camp. You can, it's not off-roading. A lot of the place, I mean, I'm sure you can do off-roading there, but just the regular tourist stuff, it's amazing to see. And you can be on pavement. You can camp in the national parks, in state parks, all over that area. Is just beautiful.
That's
highly
pretty
recommend.
Cool.
Yeah, highly recommend.
So, did you hear the news from the Northwest Jeepcast? They went and rebranded.
Yes, isn't that awesome?
After episode 500, they decided we're no longer just in the Northwest.
They
right?
are.
Because one of the Garys moved
Gary moved to
southwest,
Utah, I
right?
think.
And I guess there was another member, I forget. I don't remember all the names other than the two Garys because I'm a simple person, and two people named Gary I can remember the names,
Right,
but
exactly.
there's like 4 or 5 other people that help with the show, and one or two others are also no longer in the Northwest, so they've rebranded to the Jeepcast, which is pretty cool. But they sent Brandon to get some swag, and
Yes.
it seems like there's an issue.
Can I don't know what to do about this. I gotta show you some. I know people just listening aren't gonna see this, but Brandon stopped by my place on his way to get his swag, I think, and look what he forgot. It's a box of
Oh.
T-shirts, I think.
Yeah,
It's
so for those listening, Tammy's holding up a box from Gildan. And anyone who's familiar with swag knows that Gildan is a t-shirt company. I wonder. I
I
mean,
haven't opened it because, the
you want to?
whole thing about opening other people's mail type
Yeah,
stuff.
right. You don't know that could also be a terrorist plot, right?
Yeah.
There could be like water bottles in there that are full of unknown liquid that may just be water.
Right. And I hope the Garys don't think that I'm like stealing their swag or anything, but
Well,
I hope he comes back and gets
like
it.
I wouldn't mind a Jeepcast T-shirt if you want to
Oh,
skim
well,
one or two off the top
right.
before they figure
What
it out.
what size do you wear, Nate? I'll jot a note.
So yeah, well, I mean, I guess we better let the Garys know that
Yes.
he didn't seem to have any new swag on his CRV, did he? Because
Um,
they mentioned something about a big check they gave him, and
yeah, I heard that.
he showed back up with
I'm
no
not gonna
swag.
even comment about the wrap he has on his
Oh, there's a
vehicle.
wrap now. Okay.
Yes, I think it's a wrap. Or it could be a fancy paint job. I don't know. So tonight's theme, tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about food.
Yeah, everyone likes food,
everyone
right?
loves food, and it's trail food, camp food, food.
Yeah. So I mean, when you're out wheeling, in my brain, there's a couple categories here, right? Based on the sort of wheeling you're doing and the sort of setup you've got, essentially, right? A lot of people, when they go wheeling, they also camp. So we're including camp food, which also kind of crosses over a bit into overland style
Overlanding,
food,
yeah.
right? So,
Depending on how
um,
long you go.
yeah, yeah. So, we're going to have to make sure we touch on food storage, which I didn't include in the notes, but it just occurred
Yes,
to me that food storage is going to be very
it's a
important
huge yes.
depending on where you're going and how long you're going to be out there. So,
And food is fair, and liquids too. Not
yeah,
not the alcoholic kind, but just water is so important. When we were on the Rubicon Trail, we actually started running out of water because it was so hot. And
yeah,
when you're spotting and you're walking up and down those rocks and making sure
yep,
you get very, very dehydrated. And I cannot emphasize enough that water is so important, even if you're there for a day,
yeah,
and you just got to keep
yep.
drinking plenty of fluids.
Yeah, so that leads perfectly into the kind of the first category that I've got here, right? So I have it split into trail food and camping food. And for me, there's two different ways that I trail ride, right? One of them is when I'm leading a group,
Right.
guiding, right? Even if I'm not leading, if I'm tail gunning, but if I'm going to be like the person responsible for the group, right? I eat and pack food differently than if I'm out just for my own fun, right?
Okay.
So when I'm guiding, generally, I like to keep things as simple as possible because and
You're
maybe
so
not
busy.
everyone's,
You're so
well,
busy.
maybe not everybody's brain works this way, but mine does. Where if I have a job to do, I like to keep all of the background noise to a minimal,
Mhm.
right? So if I'm thinking about like how am I cooking my lunch, or what's for lunch, or how quickly can I assemble my sandwich, or whatever, that's taking away from paying attention to the group, right? And again, maybe that's just me. Maybe other people can multitask better than I can. So I usually try to keep it simple. I pack like protein bars. For whatever reason, I find that pretzels are a really good like snack to have while I'm guiding because they're easy to just grab a couple. They don't make a mess, and as long as you're drinking enough, the combination of the salt and the liquids mean that, and maybe this isn't good for you, but it means you don't have to stop for breaks as often.
Right.
So, and I even noted this. This may not be good for your health, right? But trying to control yourself in that way means that you're not stopping the group as often, right?
And
And
that
I
can
think
be
that's important.
because that gets very frustrating. It's like, oh, we have
We're
to
stopped
make another
again.
potty spot. Oh, we
Yeah.
have to make another potty break.
Yeah. Twizzlers,
Um,
that's another good one. The Jeep Jamboree usually includes little packs of Twizzlers. That's in the chat here. Videos put it in the chat. Little packs of Twizzlers in our lunches.
right.
And Penny, who leads the trail that I tail for, she usually gives me her Twizzlers because she doesn't like them.
So that's funny you say that all the items. So I did a YouTube video on my top 5 trail foods,
Mm-hmm.
and pretzels was one, and Twizzler. I did it. I broke mine up into categories of like carbohydrates, proteins. I forget what the other ones were, and candy was one. But Twizzlers, you have to have Twizzlers on every off-road trip. That's just a must.
Yeah, right. I mean, Twizzlers,
Yeah,
they're important.
Cheez-Its are good. Cheez-Its are another good thing. And then um, you got to stay away from chocolates or things that are sticky,
Oh
because
yeah.
then you have to have, your wipes to wipe, or your steering wheel gets all sticky, or
Yep.
so you
Yep.
just stay away from sticky and chocolate, because
And
chocolate melts.
yeah, I usually try to avoid like sugary carbonated beverages like soda, just because they
Yep.
tend to just make me thirstier.
Oh, well, and then when you're bouncing around on the trail,
Yep, that too.
it fizzes out, so you don't
Yep.
have that carbonation anymore.
Yep. Yep. Now, I have been known to take a Mountain Dew with me on the trail. I don't know why, but for some reason, like everyone has that guilty pleasure. For me, it's Mountain Dew and Fritos.
Oh,
I can't explain why.
that sounds really good. Sounds really
But
good.
usually, if it's not water, it's some kind of a sport drink like Gatorade or whatever. It depends on how hot it is. This year at the Jamboree that was just last month, I didn't have enough water with me. I ran to Walmart the first night and got myself a larger. I have like a little lunch cooler,
Uh-huh.
like you'd see a construction worker with, the little
Correct.
one that's not
Yeah.
very big, holds a couple cans of soda if you were to
The
pack
little
it from side to
igloo.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went and bought a one that's about twice as tall and a whole case of water and an 8-pack of Gatorade because I ran out of water halfway through the first day. And
And
other people are coming to me. They're like, "Do you have any extra water? I'm out of water." I'm like, "I am fixing this for tomorrow."
and people would be surprised. You think you have enough water, but
Yeah, I took a whole case in with me the next day.
and you probably went through it all.
Yeah, no, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, it ended up being cooler the second day, and it rained a little bit, so it
Uh-huh.
didn't we didn't end up needing as much water, but I had it in case we did. I figured it's not going to go to waste. I'll just bring it home with me. So, but yeah, it was water was definitely important.
Now, those are just snacks. We also
Yeah,
typically, when you're in a trail ride with a group, there's always a specific time where everybody stops for lunch and everybody brings their own lunch. You break out your little camp chair, you open the
yep,
back of your Jeep, and you do your thing. And some people get kind of extravagant. And some
yeah.
people are pretty simple, like with cheese and crackers, or a ham and cheese sandwich. What do you typically do?
So I once ran into a guy who he brought cans of sardines. That's what he ate for
Oh,
lunch.
yuck.
We sat down. He's peeling open a can of sardines. I'm like, "That's what you eat on the trail?" He had like sardines and something else random, like broccoli or something. I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, yuck. Yeah, I'll
But
pass on that.
so again, when I'm guiding, I try to keep it simple. So I'll either stop at a grocery store and go to their deli and grab a pre-made sandwich that's already
Mhm.
wrapped, so I don't have to worry about is it going to get soggy in my cooler and that kind of stuff. Or I'll just go to a gas station and
Right.
get one of their pre-made
I mean, ham and
sealed
cheese, right.
sandwiches, and that's what I eat. Now, if I'm out for recreation, this will be different depending on whether the kids are around or not. If it's just me, it should be a simple like I'll make a sandwich at home or something to take it with me. Peanut butter and jelly, believe it or not. If you've never had a peanut butter and jelly on a hot day on the trail, try it. It's like the best lunch you'll ever eat.
That's like when you're camping and you get a hot dog cooked over
Yeah.
the fire, I mean, like, typically people we don't I mean, you don't eat a hot dog when you get home from work, but a hot
Right.
dog on the trail after
It's
a long
different.
day, it's so good, just like peanut
It's
butter and
totally
jelly.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's but peanut butter and jelly, there's like if you really break it down, the peanut butter has a decent amount of protein in it.
Mhm.
The jelly has some sugar in it, right? It
Mhm.
tastes good. It's easy to eat. If you keep it cool, it generally retains that coldness so that as you're eating it, you feel a little cooler.
Right.
It's just a good compact trail meal.
Agree.
I wouldn't recommend it every day, and it's not fancy. You're not going to win any
No.
awards for your cooking on the trail for peanut butter and jelly, but it works. But yeah,
Well, one time I went on a trail ride. We went to Peters Mill Run in Virginia, and it was a trail ride that was a Jeep Mama trail ride. Anyway, I decided, you know what? I'm going to cook for these people on my Jeep. And I
there you go.
got a loaf of garlic bread, the ones that are already cut in half, the frozen. And I got some cheeses and some ham. And I just like stuffed it in the garlic loaf, got the heavy duty tin foil, used three um, swipes of the tin foil and wrapped it up. And before we hit the trail, we put it on the manifold. I took
Hmm.
that fancy, the fancy cover on the Jeep Wranglers,
Yeah, yeah.
the
The three
anyway,
six, the plastic
yeah,
shield that's on top. Yeah,
yeah, I took that off and we kind of zip tied it in between I think it was the manifold and the battery. And we went and did our morning trail ride. And around lunchtime, we got it off, took it off, and it was all melty and it was so good. But
that's cool.
you can cook on your engine while
Yeah,
you're on the
yeah.
trail ride. People do burritos, frozen
I've
burritos.
uh, I've heard of this before. And in fact, it was when I was still listening to you guys on the Jeep Talk Show. You had what was her name, Gina. She
Yes,
would come on
Gina
and talk about
Ferendi, I think is her
cooking
name
on
is.
the
Yes.
cooking on the trail, and she talked about that, and you might have even shared that because I remember hearing a similar story. But yeah,
There's
I've always wanted to try that, and I haven't gotten around to it yet. The underside of my engine bay is not a clean place.
right. We One of the guys eating the sandwich, he said, "God, it tastes like there's some blinker fluid on this sandwich."
Yeah, mine would probably end up tasting like
Yeah,
oil.
oil.
I have a 4.0. There's nothing under the hood that doesn't smell or get coated in oil.
There's, I think it's Black Forest. I'm looking it up right now. I think they have like a little. I think Dana. I've wheeled with her before. She has like a little attachment,
Hmm.
like a little oven that you can put on your Jeep, that you can put stuff in that cooks it. I'll have to look to see if I can find that and put that in the show notes.
I remember watching an episode of like The Cake Boss or something, and he was delivering a cake, and he was on this really tight deadline because it's a reality show, and you can't just casually deliver this very expensive cake. It has to be on a deadline. But he's driving some ridiculous distance, and of course, he didn't want to stop to eat, so he took a can of baked beans and wire tied it to the exhaust.
Oh my goodness!
And then he just pulled over, cut it off, cut the wire off, and then he opened the can of baked beans, and
Right.
that was his lunch.
Oh my goodness! What a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, it's just baked beans. You could theoretically just eat them raw, because although that'd be kind of gross, but it would get the job done.
Right. I know people during after hurricanes, they would just when you didn't have electricity, they would just
Yeah,
open up a can of raviolis or whatever.
yeah. So I mean, speaking of that style food, depending on who you are and how you supply yourself, you might have those little MREs. I have some for camping sometimes. When things were looking like really scary around COVID time, I bought a whole box of MREs just
Mm-hmm.
in case. Ended up not needing them. I was happy to not need them, but I would have rather had them and not needed them. But they make good trail food as well because they're meant to be taken wherever
Right.
and eaten. I wouldn't recommend eating them frequently though, because they're really high. One, they're high in calories,
And sodium,
they're
I
high in
do.
sodium,
Yeah.
and if you talk to soldiers who eat these a lot, they say they are designed to bind you up because
Oh,
soldiers who are out in the field don't exactly have a potty, right?
right.
So just keep that in mind, right? I wouldn't eat a lot of them, but I'll have one every now and then because I don't want them to go bad. I did spend money on the dang things,
Right.
but good to keep in mind.
So
So,
we've got lunch and snacks down.
yep.
When you're camping, Sometimes you may do a 2-day trail ride, so you're gonna, camp somewhere out on the trail, and you
Hmm.
gotta think about how you're gonna cook for your dinner and possibly even breakfast the next morning. And I think for me, I like to think ahead of time before I go and prep as much as I can at my house and put it. Some people use what are they called? Where you suck the air out of the food. Why can't I think
Oh,
of
a
that?
vacuum sealer. Yeah.
Vacuum sealer. They like you can pre chop up your chicken, put it in a vacuum sealer or your veggies. My go-to meal is chicken tacos. I'll pre-chop up my chicken, I'll pre-chop up my peppers and onions, and I have a cast iron pan, and I'll cook my taco stuff in there, and I'll bring tortillas and um, sour cream and cheese, and whatever's left over the next morning, I have eggs, and I'll make a chicken taco omelet or scramble.
Yeah. There you
Um,
go.
but I think if you can think of stuff where you can prepare enough where you can use it for more than one meal is always a good thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I do that at home, right?
right. Yes.
My wife makes these like roasted potatoes sometimes. She'll make like a whole cookie sheet full of them. And then whatever we don't eat goes in the fridge. And then the next morning, I'll take them and throw them in a frying pan, put eggs over them. And
Yep.
like it's a wonderful breakfast. You could easily do the exact same meal on the trail.
Right.
Yeah.
I
I mean, you don't
think
have an oven to roast them in. You'd have to find some other way to roast the potatoes, but
you could still do it
you
in
could fry
your
them, I guess.
right in
Yeah.
your cast iron pan. The
Yeah.
thing is, you gotta like pack lightly. I think, and you got to think about how are you going to keep stuff cold. So a lot of people have the refrigerators.
Those things are expensive, though. I mean,
Right.
I don't know if
They
there's an
are.
answer to that. Is there a brand that isn't the ARB fridge that is popular and not as expensive?
Actually, when I went on my first trip back in 2019, we got a Costway fridge. It looked just like, the ARBs and stuff. And we ended up using that when I was living in Colorado as our daily refrigerator in our camper when I was living in the camper.
Wow,
And it lasted. And as a matter of fact, I think he's probably still using it in Colorado as his refrigerator. So that would have been, gosh, 4 years. And
Costway, huh?
Costway.
How
It
big was it though? Like, is that like I can't imagine putting even a non-powered cooler in the back of my Jeep because I just don't have the room.
So it was the typical size of
It's like the size of a normal ice chest cooler.
yes, like oh gosh, I can't even remember how big it was. It was probably like 2 feet by maybe a foot.
Okay, it's a little smaller than I was
Yeah,
thinking, but hmm,
it wasn't super huge, but it kept things cool. You could get it like where you could have things frozen.
yeah,
And it had a little section where you could put like things that don't need to be as cold, like maybe some fruits and vegetables.
yeah.
But it worked really good. I do suggest if you use a cooler with ice that you pack all your food in Ziploc bags because once that ice starts melting, um, it gets everything wet. Like you may have a stick of
Yeah.
butter just sitting in there, put it in a Ziploc bag, or you may have, you opened up your ham and you just put the ham back in. Still, you got to keep all
Yep.
that stuff sealed up.
Yeah, when I was in the scouts, we learned all kinds of ways to like wrap things in foil so that it wouldn't leak, so
Yep,
you wouldn't have to depend on Ziploc bags. But Ziploc bags are so much easier.
exactly.
It's just like so much of an easier. Well, yeah, you can just keep a box of them around, right? And then
Right.
sure, you're throwing away Ziploc bags, but they do make reusable Ziploc bags that you can clean out. I forget the brand. My wife bought a bunch of them, and we still
Uh
use them
huh.
around the house for stuff that that isn't like some things you don't want to put in a bag you're going to reuse, but because it's hard to clean out. But yeah, those might be good for that kind of thing, like to stick your sandwich in or whatever.
Correct. So, that's, 1, 2 days. If you have a fridge to keep things cold or, an ice chest with ice. But you also have like some people go on longer 4 or 5 day trips. Um, and they may not have a fridge. And,
Yep.
that's where you have to get creative, like spaghetti
Yep. So I
and
mean,
jar of ragu.
as you mention it, right? So your buddy videos asked that exact thing. What do you recommend for food for a couple day trip with no fridge and no ice? So I think we already talked about MREs. There was some chat going on in the live stream here about freeze dried food instead of
Yep.
MREs because I don't know. I guess the quality is better. I've never had freeze dried food, but freeze dried meals.
Food
But
meals.
other than remember that astronaut ice cream we used to get as kids?
Yes,
It was like a little
they still
brick.
sell that at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum.
Yeah, that's probably the only freeze dried food I've ever had. But Mike in the chat says that what was it? Mountain House makes some, and there's probably other brands. I've heard of Mountain House before, but I've never actually had their stuff. And come to think of it, right? Again, when I was back in the Scouts, I remember seeing this was like the mid '90s, right? So this stuff was still not as commonplace as it is today. I remember going to some presentation at like a sporting goods store, and they were talking about, look at these things. You just add
Right.
water or whatever, right? So yeah, I've seen them. I've never had them though.
And they are lightweight.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
you can do the canned food route, like a can of Dinty Moore beef stew.
Yeah.
And it depends on weight too. You gotta consider weight so you can, can of Dinty Moore beef stew. You can do can of tuna fish.
Yep. I would think like pastas. Heck, take some macaroni and cheese.
Yep.
Right? The stuff that has the cheese already pre-made. Not the stuff you need to add milk and butter to because you're gonna have to bring along milk and butter. But like the Velveeta one, right?
Yep.
And your can of tuna fish or hot dogs or something, cut them up and throw them in the mac and cheese, and you've got a whole meal.
Yep.
With meat and pasta. Now there's no vegetable there. Eat a carrot.
There you go. Hey, and you were saying this last time you were with I think it was at Bantam. You had your little sandwich and your friend had a jet boil.
Yeah, that was actually at OAA. Remember, I think it was last time we had a show. I talked about my buddy with the Hummer H2.
Yep.
It's him. He's a backpacker, so he has a bunch of backpacking stuff, and one of those things is a little jet boil, which just looks like a coffee mug, like a travel mug, but on the bottom it has this thing. I don't even know what it's fueled with, but he basically hooked it up, put water in the top, turned it on, and it made him boiling water, and he made like these like soba noodles and all kinds of. He had some kind of sauce that he put on it, and him and his girlfriend ate this Chinese meal right on the right on the trail at AOAA.
I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah. Now, I was done eating and like ready to get back on the trail, and he's still cooking, right? So there's that to think about too. If you're going to be that guy, make sure you're with other people that are also that guy.
And you got to consider cleanup.
Yeah.
You got to take time to clean all your stuff.
Yeah. In his case, I think he just rinsed it out and he said he would clean it later. Right. He just like put the lid back on it, packed it up. Off he went.
Another good thing for probably more so overlanders, if typically overlanders don't wheel until the crack of sunset when it's getting ready. They'll give themselves enough time to set up camp, get their kitchen going, get the fire going, get the coals going, and they Dutch oven cooking. It is so good. Yep. And you can make a lot of food in the bigger Dutch ovens. I think they now make smaller ones.
Yeah, my dad has one, again, from our scouting days that's, I don't know, might be a foot across, maybe 9 inches. It's not huge. We made peach cobbler in it, which was pretty good, right?
Yep.
But he makes stew in the thing.
So good.
My dad was a Boy Scout from way back when he was a kid, and he was then a scout leader. And then when I was in the Scouts, he was living his best life, right? But but this thing, he can make a campfire stew that is better than any stew I've had at any restaurant ever. And it's just like ground beef and a gravy packet and cherry tomatoes and like he just throws it in, puts it in the campfire, comes back in an hour or whatever, however long it takes.
It's so good. And you can, you can do chicken pot pie. You can, we
Yep.
went with Bob from TNT, he does 4 exploring events, and he made lasagna in the Dutch oven, and it was to die for.
Lasagna. Sounds
Yes.
interesting.
And then he made this for breakfast. He made this waffle egg bake using waffles and eggs and sausage and the Dutch ovens. You can get so creative with them, and they're
Yeah.
Google Dutch oven campfire foods, and there's so many.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
it's effectively an oven. It's just
right,
small, right? The thing is, it's not as easy to regulate the heat, right? So if you're trying to do true baking in it, baking is very picky when it comes
right,
down to what goes in and what temperature you cook it at and whatever. But if you're just making a stew or if you're making, roasted potatoes, there's how I'll make my roasted potatoes on the trail.
right.
Um, that'll work out perfect.
But the Dutch oven is a good idea, and the scottle. You
I've
have
never seen a scottle. I've heard the word. It's
yes.
funny. You'd always giggle when I hear it. What is
It's
a scottle?
it's actually Bob made his own. He made it from a plow disc, and
Okay.
he welded a piece in the center that had a hole in it, but it's like a rounded disc, and there's like a butane heater underneath
Is
it.
it is it like a walk almost?
It looks like a big, huge wok,
Okay.
and some of them, like, they now sell them. They're like these little hanging things that you can put over the fire, like at Walmart. You can go to Walmart and buy it's like on a tripod, a like a TP tripod type
Yeah.
thing, and it's kinda like a frying pan over the fire,
I mean, I've seen
and
those tripods for like putting a pot over the fire. I've never seen it for
right.
something that's more like a frying pan.
Yeah, and it actually the tripod has chains hanging from it where you
Yeah.
hook the
Yeah.
thing on. And actually the bigger ones are really good for group cooking because
Hmm.
I saw someone they started in the middle and they cooked their hamburger and then they pushed the hamburger out to the side so it would stay warm. And then they did whatever they did next, fried some onions and then pushed those to the side. So you could cook a bunch of different things on it
Oh, that's
because
cool.
the middle is like really, really hot.
And the
Um,
outer edge is just kind of
right,
warm. That's
right.
cool.
You could do like a Polish sausage and then some
Yeah.
potatoes and,
I can see
um,
how this would be a very versatile overlanding cooking utensil. So now I
yes.
understand why they're so popular. That's
Yeah.
cool. See
Um,
that I learned something tonight.
there
Thank
you
you.
go.
I know what a
Wow.
scottle is now.
I taught Nate something. Usually it's the other way around.
Well, you're talking to the
Um,
guy who's extolling the virtues of peanut butter and jelly on the trail,
yeah,
right? So I'm
exactly.
not exactly a trail gourmet, all right?
And you're buying your lunch from the
Yeah.
gas station.
I'm a simple person when it comes to food. Like I don't mind a nice meal, but I don't need a nice meal. You can give
Oh,
me an MRE and I'll survive. You can give me like here's some crackers.
I'm just the opposite. I love food and it has to be special and extravagant and
And don't get me wrong, I love food too.
yeah,
It's not my life does not hinge on how nice the meal I just had was, is what I'm
right.
getting at.
And then of course, I saw in the notes you said pie irons.
Yeah, you ever seen
Oh,
these? You
yes,
have. I'm homing. Yeah.
we grew up with them camping in Minnesota back in the day. And it's the best memories I have of my parents. We'd make little pizza pie irons
Yeah.
with cheese and ham and pepperonis and pizza sauce. And to this day, my sisters and we make them in our fireplace. Well, I don't have
When
a fireplace now, but
when trying to think how this might have been like 2010, maybe earlier. I used to get together every year with the guys from the Jeepaholics Anonymous online forums, right? We used to go to Paragon every year until
mhm.
Paragon closed, and then we switched to Roush Creek because it was really the only thing around. So this might have been even earlier, like 2007 or eight. Um, and then we all got lives and didn't have money to wheel for a while, so that all kind of fell apart. But we went to Roush Creek the one year, and people would come from like all over this coast to wherever we were wheeling, right? And we had some guys come up from I think they were from like South Carolina, North Carolina, something like that, and they brought pie irons. And I swear the only food they brought was things that they could put between bread in the pie irons.
Yep.
And it's like every time we were at camp, they'd break out the pie irons and just start cooking.
They're so good. And there's so much stuff you can put in them.
Yeah,
Cookies.
their thing was they had like a dozen different kinds of jelly and jam, and they were making these little like jelly pie iron
Pies. Yep.
pies. Yeah, with they just had like they must have had 20 loaves of bread, and they were just like, get some more bread, slap some
Yep.
jelly in.
You could put a can of apples, the
Yeah.
apple pie filling, peach
Yeah.
filling. You can make little
Yeah.
pies. So good. And Nate, I saw the go-to, the old standby, but they're now getting fancier and fancier as I watch
Oh
people
yeah.
make
Yeah. The good old
s'mores.
make sure you've got marshmallows with you,
Mhm.
and you don't even need a fancy stick. Just go break one off a tree.
Yep. Do a little whittling.
I don't know if that's acceptable anymore, but that's the way I ate all my marshmallows as a kid.
Yep.
Off some stick I found and carved with my pocket knife.
Same here.
And then of course don't forget the chocolate and graham crackers. Just not when you're driving on the trail, because that would get really messy.
Oh, can you imagine how sticky that would be?
Yeah, and graham
People,
cracker crumbs everywhere.
yes. People use like Reese's peanut butter cups now.
Yeah.
Kit Kat bars. They just get really fancy.
Man, we used to make it. I forget what we called it. They might have been called Doughboys. We used to take a bigger stick, right? Something that's a little fatter, and you would cut off all the bark, and then you would take some dough from like a crescent roll, like the Pillsbury things, and you'd wrap it around the stick, and then you'd cook it over the campfire until it was baked, quote unquote baked, cooked, right? Then you'd peel it off the stick and you'd stuff it with whatever you wanted inside. Could be chocolate, could be jelly, whatever. And then that was like your dessert after dinner at night. Those were good. I don't know how you'd easily replicate those. You have to find just the right stick,
right,
to make that work. But those were always good. Those were good.
You could probably do that with a hot dog and just wrap the crescent roll around a hot dog, and
you could do that too.
Have a corn dog.
Yep, sort of a corn dog.
And the other thing you need to think about when you're packing all this food is not only how you're going to pack it and how you're going to keep it cold, if you're going to keep it cold, but clean up. You know, you have to bring extra water to wash dishes if you're going to do all that fancy cooking. And
not just that, but depending where you are, you may not be able to use just plain old soap.
Correct.
Right? If you're in a protected area, you may have to use soap that will not harm the ecology of the area, or soap that'll biodegrade, that kind of thing. We went when I was in the Scouts, we did a canoeing trip through this series of lakes in Canada, and it turned out to be like a 50-mile trip. That's how, like, we would canoe for a while, then we'd have to take the canoes to the next lake on our backs. That was fun.
Were you in the boundary waters up in Minnesota, maybe?
No, this was in Canada.
Okay.
There's a name for the park. My dad could probably tell me because I'm terrible with names. But anyway, one of the things was we had to bring special soap with us because you couldn't just use normal hand soap, because it would, they didn't want that in the groundwater. They wanted it all to be, and so we had to get these special bars of soap. Anyway, that's a thing to think about, right? Especially overlanding, right? You could be in like these far off regions where there's not people around, there's no running water or whatever, and you may have to think about stuff like that. So maybe you want to just carry that kind of soap anyway. I don't know.
Right. It all falls back on those tread lightly principles at treadlightly.org. The other thing too is be aware when we went to Yellowstone, all of a sudden we got closer and closer to Yellowstone, and all of a sudden there's signs everywhere about the bears.
Yep.
Those, I didn't know this, but grizzly bears can smell stuff from 9 miles away.
Yep. We used to put all of our food up in a bear bag.
Yep.
Which is basically just you take a bag, you put all your food in it, and you hang it up in a tree where the bear can't get to it. And you can't put it close to the tree because the bear can climb the tree. You have to like find a nice sturdy branch that's out far enough, throw a rope over it, and hoist your bag up, right? And hope that the bear isn't smart enough to cut the rope, because bears aren't very smart as far as I know.
And put that bear bag away from your camp.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You want it so that they don't wander into your camp looking for your food. So, but yeah, we had We had raccoons bite
Mhm.
a hole through the side of our. We had a one of those collapsible water jugs that we
Yep.
had like juice in. I think it was just like Kool-Aid or something. We had a raccoon bite a hole in the side of that and drink that. Um, we've had squirrels come and like steal food from us, even during the day. Right, you'll just be like hanging out at the other end of camp. You'll look over your shoulder and like there's a squirrel running off with some of your dinner.
Yeah, that was I went to Boy Scout camp with my son one year, and that was the same thing. One of the female scout leaders thought she was going to play a trick on the scoutmaster, and she put food in his tent,
Ah,
and which was a really horrible
that's just
joke to
mean.
play. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, she turned out started dating my husband, and now my husband and her boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-husband. So
Well, he
yeah,
deserves. He
yes.
deserves her.
But anyway, sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Total random side
I
trail
know,
there.
sorry. But anyway, these squirrels got in there and chewed up this man's expensive sleeping bag,
Yeah,
trying to get at the food and everything. So,
yeah,
yeah, all those little critters want to eat your food. So
they do.
pack it
They
right.
do. They will take any free meal they can get. They don't
Hmm.
care what they have to eat, even if they have to chew through your tent to get to it.
And they will do that.
Yep.
We had squirrels back in Maryland chew through our garbage can, the plastic garbage cans, because they're trying to get inside, and they chewed holes in it.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Squirrels are just little rats.
yep.
They are cute rats. Anything a rat can chew through, so can a squirrel.
Right, right.
Anyway, I think we covered it pretty well. Any
I
other?
think so. I can't
Any
think
other? So
of
we
there's
didn't
so
go.
many options out there.
Yeah, we didn't go too deeply into like storing food, although we did talk about coolers.
Right.
Um, really, it's going to come down to space, right? There's a reason that overlanders move toward larger vehicles with their, with more cargo space. I don't
Mhm.
think I could imagine overlanding in like a two door, a standard two door TJ.
Oh, that would be quite
Um,
hard. Unless you were by yourself, maybe.
yeah, you could take the seats out and put your stuff in the back. But I got to be honest, even even before we had kids, we took my YJ for a weekend of camping and wheeling, and it was tough to fit our gear for just my wife and I
Mhm.
in the back of the YJ, even with no seat. I guess it didn't help that I had a tire back there. Probably didn't help.
Yeah, that's true. I think the more you do it, the more you realize what you really need
Yeah.
and what you don't use. And you can start weeding that stuff out
Yep. Yep.
as each trip goes on.
Yep.
Um,
All right. So, folks, if you've got any comments or any suggestions or any questions, reach out. You can reach us through the Off-Road Insiders Instagram or on Facebook. You can find us there. Or we haven't really publicized this much, but we really should. We have an email address,
oh, yes.
offroadinsiders@gmail.com. So, hit us up that way too. Send us feedback or, go leave a review. Reviews are good. Maybe we'll start reading those online.
Oh,
We need
yes. We should
we
start
need
doing that. We need reviews.
yeah, we don't have any reviews yet. So go review. Maybe we'll read it.
We will read it.
do we
Just
do we need some gimmick like the Jeepcast guys have?
yeah, what's their gimmick
Their
again?
gimmick was they had one of the Gary's daughter read it
Oh, okay.
in like cute kid voice.
Uh-huh.
Carissa,
I
that's her name, right?
it would have to be one of your kids. My kids would say, "Mom, yeah, no, I'm not doing that."
There is not a hyphen in the email address. It is offroadinsiders, all one word, @gmail.com.
Okay, time for some news.
Yeah. Hang on. Did I have any other announcements here? I don't think so. Oh, StreamYard offers us. I didn't
Oh,
run this past you.
sorry. Sorry,
I didn't run this
sorry.
past you, Tammy, but I figured it's not going to hurt anything. StreamYard is the company or the software we use to make this stream, and they offer like an incentive for us to share that. And if you want to help the show out, and if you're also trying to start your own show, check out StreamYard. There's a link in our notes here where you can give us some credit toward, if you try out StreamYard. So I can't recite this link; it's way too long, but it's in the notes. Go check it out if you want to try out StreamYard. It works really well. You like it, right, Tammy?
I think StreamYard works awesome.
Yeah.
It's really a good little program. So easy to do and set up, and I like it. It's very
Yeah.
versatile. Very versatile.
Yeah, yeah. I've done the complicated streaming stuff in the past, and this is so much simpler.
I mean, it's so simple. I even get it. So that just tells you how easy it is because I'm not very tech savvy at all.
Yeah, yeah. All the tools are there. Tammy could even run the show if I wasn't here.
Yeah.
That's all the buttons that I do. It's pretty handy. All right, now we can go into the news.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Oopsie.
No, that's fine. It's fine. I didn't mention it to you beforehand, so I should have.
So which one do you want to do first? Let's.
We go from the top down, right?
Yeah.
You've seen the Jeep Gladiator, right?
Yes, we actually
And
are working on a few of them in our shop at TNT Customs.
yeah, and you know they come in diesel, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I mean, it's more like they came in diesel because they aren't making diesel
no.
Wranglers anymore, and I think they've stopped production of the diesel, or they're about to stop production of the diesel Gladiator as well, which is kind of a shame.
It
Now
is
they use
kinda
that
sad.
they use that 3.0 eco diesel, and from what I've heard, there have been some weird issues with the 3.0. I don't have any details, but every time I mention the 3.0 eco diesel, there's always someone in the crowd that goes, "Oh, you don't want one of those." So it makes me feel like they're getting a reputation. So there's a reason for that. So I don't know what they are, but apparently there's been issues with the 3.0 eco diesel, which is in the Wrangler and the Gladiator. But if you want one last run at a diesel Gladiator, there is a brand new edition coming out, a new trim package essentially for the Rubicon Gladiator called the Far Out Edition. And apparently they did this for the Wrangler when they ended production of their diesel Wrangler as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for the low price of $71,000,
I can't
you
even
too
imagine.
Can have a Far Out Edition Gladiator Rubicon.
That blows me away.
I don't know what the diesel Gladiator cost without this package, but I know I've seen them at the Jamboree, and if they paid anywhere close to 71 grand for this, I don't know. They're living a different economic life than me.
That payment would have to be, I would have to guess, between $800 and $1,000 a month.
Easily. It's probably more, because when I was looking at tow rigs, I looked at newer pickups first, and they're in the like 30 to 40, maybe 50 grand range. If you get a brand new one that's got the, like, especially like a diesel or whatever, and those were in the $700, $800, $900 a month range. A $71,000 vehicle, that's probably over $1,000 a month.
That's
I mean, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but I'm sure we could figure this out. But yeah, crazy to spend that much money on a vehicle, especially one to take off road. I don't know if I could do it. Maybe if like 71 grand was no issue for me, then maybe I would. But
maybe if we win the lottery,
Yeah, right. I mean, I mentioned this before on the show that I had a 2-door JK, a 2013 Sport, right? I think I spent 23 grand on it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to wheel that because I didn't like how much money I owed on it.
Right.
71 grand, forget it.
That's just crazy. Something's got to change.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, at the rate everything's getting more expensive, I wish all of our salaries were also going up, right?
At the same rate, exactly. So
Probably more than a mortgage payment. Yeah, that's right.
So
Mike said that in chat.
We are the off-road insiders, so we're going to talk about more than just Jeeps on this show.
Yeah, I did my best here to grab some others.
Yeah, and there are so many other vehicles out there for off-roading.
Yep.
The Toyotas and some people
take
the Hummers.
I forgot that last article was from Motor Trend. We got to get better at that.
Oh yeah. Credit where credit is due.
The one about the Gladiator was for Motor Trend. The next one is from Road and Trek.
Yep.
So, have you guys, or you? I guess you're the only one that can respond to me, unless someone wants to respond in chat. Has anyone heard of the electric Hummer? There's a Hummer model that is now electric.
Not until just now, today.
Okay.
When I saw this.
I had heard about it before, except it was somewhere in the back of my brain because really it just doesn't register for me. I don't really care that there's an electric Hummer. I kind of knew that there was, but it's about it. Maybe within the last year or so, I think. There's also an electric Hummer pickup. They're I don't know what the model is, what they call the Hummer pickup anymore. Just says Hummer EV pickup. However, the article that we linked is about the Hummer EV Earth Cruiser. And this is an overland electric vehicle. And it looks kind of neat, I have to say. And the really cool thing is it has solar panels to charge itself with. Now, I don't know how quickly it can charge its batteries and what kind of range you get out of a solar charge. Because I know solar is not the most efficient way to get electricity, but it is, it's one of the only ways to get it when you're disconnected like that.
Right. Well, you know that they're putting chargers at the trailheads of a lot of trails.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Because remember I said, that'll probably show up at Moab, but I don't think we're going to see it at AOAA. You never know, but who knows?
And Tesla is putting charging stations in so many more places now. It's very surprising where you see them.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a number of them on my trip, on my business trip, where it was just like random parking lot. Here's some Tesla chargers. I do wonder, are those chargers cross-compatible with different model vehicles, or are they Tesla specific?
I think they're starting. I think a lot of the other dealers. I think I even read somewhere where Jeep is working with Tesla. I think Tesla just has that market, and I think you can. But there's certain adapters you have to use. I think. I'm just getting this from what my son tells me.
Like electricity is electricity, right? Just like gasoline is gasoline, right? So if we're gonna deploy an electric infrastructure for charging vehicles, we really should come up with some kind of a standard,
right? And I think there is adapters you can use with Tesla. I think, from what I remember my son telling me.
Because I guess the big difference would probably be the amount of volts and amps that you can accept with your vehicle, right?
Correct.
So if Tesla has a different type of battery than GM does, right?
There are certain Tesla chargers too. You have like the Tesla supercharger versus the Tesla, I can't remember, destination charger, I think it's called. I don't remember exactly. But some of them are for like super fast. You can charge your vehicle up in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And some are like my son has where he can just plug into the garage and it could take 12 hours to charge his vehicle fully. And there's certain different chargers out there.
So here's the thing that really scares me, and we're getting off on a tangent now, but it is about electric vehicles. Twice in the past year, I've had to replace batteries in laptops because the battery expanded. I don't know if you're familiar with this problem, but lithium-ion batteries, if they get exposed to too much heat or they get too old, they like blow up. Not blow up like kaboom, but they like expand, right? And then the body of your laptop starts to like bow. And then that's when you know, okay, time to take out the battery and replace it. And then you have this like hazardous waste you have to deal with. Lithium-ion battery. You can't just like toss it in the trash. You have to take it to some place that disposes of lithium-ion batteries. And it's kind of a pain in the ass. But if you don't deal with that, the battery could eventually rupture. And if they rupture, they literally catch fire. They could like burn your house down. That's how that's like the flash that it makes. So that's a little unsafe. Now they package these things so that that's unlikely, but it can happen. Or if it has
happened, I'm sure.
Yeah. You remember what were those little hoverboard things that were so popular the one year for Christmas? They had lithium-ion batteries in them and they were catching fire. There was a Samsung, had a tablet that you literally weren't allowed to take on an airplane because too many of them had caught fire spontaneously. That's because of lithium-ion batteries, right? So all that to say, electric cars have lithium-ion batteries in them. Like, are they going to spontaneously combust when they're 5 years old?
Possibly. We don't know. We'll soon find out.
Part of it is heat, and charging quickly in the way that you described with the supercharger puts extra, usually generates heat. Now, I don't know
Mhm.
if Tesla has found some way to deal with that. I would hope that they have, if this is part of what they're selling, right? But it really makes me wonder, right? Right. And what happens in an accident is what videos just said.
Mhm.
Now, again, sort of like your gas tank, right? Gas tanks are also flammable and exploding. How many of those do you see like literally explode in a car
Right.
accident? It's not as frequent as you might think because auto manufacturers have taken safety precautions to make sure they don't catch fire. I imagine they're doing the same thing with these batteries, but it does worry me.
Well, the Tesla car, I think, is one of the safest because it has so many cameras around it. They're not going to get in accidents. Maybe that's their thing
There you
because,
go. There you go.
you know,
You
yeah,
can't crash a Tesla, so it'll
right,
never catch
right.
fire. That
Yeah,
doesn't sound like it's going to hold water.
but actually,
Have you?
my son was driving on one of the interstates there in DC, or beltways or whatever you want to call it, and the car all of a sudden he lets the car drive itself a lot.
Yeah.
And all of
Yeah.
a sudden it swerved out of the way and he's like, what the heck? He didn't even see this lady in a minivan that was come up beside him and swerved into his lane. But the car
Yeah.
saw it, he didn't, and the Tesla swerved out of the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
They're not foolproof, but
well, exactly. And that's why they all come with a warning that says, yes, the vehicle can drive itself, but you still have to pay attention.
mhm.
It's still expected to have a driver, it's still expected to have a driver that can respond to things that it can't
But
predict.
the car responded faster than Michael would have, though.
Right. But if it didn't respond and the minivan swerved all
Right.
the way into his lane, he would have been responsible if he
Correct.
was in an accident, right? He can't just say,
Correct.
"Well, the car didn't respond."
Right. Um,
So,
yeah, it's
but
a
yeah,
whole new world we're
and
experiencing.
like again, I'm a techie. I get it. This stuff is really neat, and I think that I had a rental car for one of my business trips once that used that radar enhanced cruise control,
Mhm.
and it was the best thing I've ever driven because you'd put on the cruise, and usually it's like, okay, I set my cruise at 75. That guy in front of me is doing 74, right? Oh, he gets out of my way. The next one's doing, he's doing fine. Then he slows down a little bit. And you're always like fiddling with the buttons or whatever, right? Well, this will actually say, okay, there is someone X number of feet in front of me. I'll just match their speed. If they get out of your way, it speeds up, because it can tell.
Right.
It's not driving for me, but it's handling that stupid, having to
Yeah.
adjust my cruise control. Adaptive cruise control. That's the word I'm looking for.
Very cool.
But it's really nice, right? So now
Very
whenever I go to that rental place, I try to get that car again.
Remember that car I got? I want that one again.
Can I have it again? I like
Yes.
that adaptive cruise control. But yeah.
I never even heard of that before. Now I learned something new.
But like, do I want all that assistance when I'm out wheeling?
No.
Because the whole point is this is me, like, quote unquote, against the trail.
Correct.
I don't want the machine to do it for me. I want my own ingenuity and the way I've built the machine to handle the terrain, right? I don't want to like hit a button and have it crawl over the obstacles for me, right? So anyway, that was quite the tangent. You're supposed to rein me back in, Tammy.
I try, but when you're saying stuff, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's so true. Oh, I didn't know about adaptive cruise control.
Yeah, it's neat stuff.
It's like we're sitting around the campfire and I'm learning new stuff.
Well, it works out good because our next article is about that electric racer that I talked about at the beginning. And
the one you saw at the show.
The one I saw at the conference,
Yeah.
right? Neom, N-E-O-M. And I get the feeling it's actually a foreign company because they mention like from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I don't know if that's a race it was in or if that's where it came from.
Or where the story came from.
I didn't read the article well enough. I just looked up an article to show the thing. And there it is at the top if you click on the link, Tammy.
Oh, okay. I see it. I was like scrolling down and I couldn't. That looks like a space race car type thing.
Doesn't it though?
That you would see on the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, so just go to Neom, N-E-O-M, like neon, but with an M at the end, .com. And you can see pictures and stuff of this thing. And there'll be a link in the show notes.
So that's the one that you saw at your conference?
This is the same one I saw.
Huh.
And it's crazy, right? And I saw it. I'm like, oh, that's neat looking. I wonder what it's doing at a tech show, right? There must be something cool about it. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I wonder if it's electric or hybrid or
And it
something.
was it's an electric off-road
And
racing.
and later, I was looking more closely at it. I kind of crouched down to see what the drivetrain underneath looked like, and I noticed that it's missing some very important things like axle shafts and drive shafts. Right?
You
It has independent motors at every tire.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It basically has the framework of an independent suspension. It has coilovers just like you'd expect in a high performance race vehicle. But there's no drivetrain that you can see anywhere. It's just the suspension. And then you can see if you look inside the wheels, there's like these little they look aluminum. I couldn't they had it roped off. You couldn't get close to it. But that I'm assuming is the independent motors for each wheel. It was a neat looking vehicle. I kind of wished I could see the inside of it to see kind of what it looked like from the inside.
Well, I wonder if that's going to be like a whole new challenge of off-roading.
Well, they've had an electric class of King of the Hammers for a couple years now, and there's been basically one competitor. I think last year there might have been two competitors, but they have to give them a modified race course because the vehicles don't have enough range, and they're always a lot slower. Like you don't get the high 120 across the desert shots that you get from the V8 powered racers. But it's kind of neat that King of the Hammers is embracing it because I think they realize that this is kind of the future. And who knows, right? It might take 20 years before that's the reality for racing, but it's neat that they're at least looking at it. And that the vehicle I'm thinking of is a Toyota pickup, an old Toyota that they put a Tesla drivetrain in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a Tesla in a Toyota.
So we're kind of at a point in our history where this is the beginning of we don't know what. Just like when they first came out with the Bantam Blitz and the whole, they probably had no idea what that.
Yeah,
that
like we are currently the people who owned horse-drawn buggies when the automobile came out, right? We're at that next point where it's the horse-drawn buggy is now the gasoline-powered car. And what's to come of it? We can all sit and cross our arms and say that electric stuff, it'll never catch on. And then in 20 years, I'm probably not going to be driving anymore. I don't know about you.
Yep.
But our kids, for example, or people that are younger than us, it'll happen to them instead of them being a part of it, right? Just like the people who preferred horses.
I got chills thinking about that.
Yeah, right. It's crazy, isn't it?
A whole new world.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe I really wonder, because I see this happen in technology a lot, where we get like focused on a certain technology and then that one doesn't pan out, but this other one sneaks up alongside of it, and that's the thing we go with. I wonder if there's something else like that that's sort of in the works that hasn't happened yet. Like fusion power, for example. Right. There's apparently been can't talk tonight. Breakthroughs in fusion power recently. And I wonder if that's going to solve the how do we generate electricity problem, right? Hydrogen powered vehicles. That's another one, right? They talked about hydrogen powered vehicles forever. I remember like back when I was first getting into vehicles, hydrogen was a thing that they were hoping they could eventually power vehicles off of.
Maybe they'll figure out how to use like, what's his name on Doc Brown, putting garbage.
Fuel, gasoline, yeah, fuel from garbage, yeah.
Right. I need your trash, Marty. I need your trash.
Putting banana peels and stuff in there.
Crazy world we live in right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes. I personally, I try to keep an open mind, like with many things in life.
We can't stop it.
It's like, I like that gasoline powered vehicles are a thing that I've already kind of got a good handle on, but that's not a good enough reason to not learn something new.
Right. You got to go with the flow.
Yep. All right. Well, we're a few minutes over as usual.
And that's quite okay.
Yep. That's quite okay.
And I guess we should let folks know we're going to do our shows every other Monday.
Yep. So now it'll be a predictable every other Monday.
Every other Monday. For now.
if we go crazy, maybe we'll go to every Monday, but
Yep.
I don't know.
We'll see how much we enjoy.
My wife is currently recovering from another surgery, so
I saw that.
so
Oh,
I'm lucky I was able to get away for this one.
prayers to fast healing. Her poor
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's almost like this is normal for this family anymore.
Right. Oh, mom's down for the count again.
Mom's on one leg again. Anyway, all right. So our next show is going to be on September 11th of 2023. That's 2 Mondays from now. So not next Monday, but the Monday after. We're going to be talking about, do you really need all that camping gear?
Mhm.
And I've been toying around with, do you really need all that like trail gear? Maybe we'll do another show on that, but next one will be camping gear.
Because you see all these places. Oh, you got to have this. You got to have that. You got to,
Yep.
you know, but do you really?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you really need?
I've been thinking hard lately about all the crap I keep in the back of my Jeep, and I got to say, I go very prepared, but how much of it have I ever actually used?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the conversation we had about the high lift.
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to leave my high lift at home because I think it's too valuable of a tool, but how many times have I actually used it on the trail? I could probably count on one hand. Mm-hmm. Number of times when that was the tool I really, really, really needed, right? And it's big and it's heavy, right? So anyway, if you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us wherever you normally find podcasts. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, like I mentioned earlier. Just look for the Off-Road Insiders podcast. You can find Tammy at jeepmama.com and me at swbcrawler.com. And like I said, if you want to reach out to the show, send us an email at offroadinsiders@gmail.com. Any other comments there, Tammy?
Nope, that's about it. Time to go eat my dinner.
Yeah, time for me to wrap up the show. So, folks, we will see you in 2 weeks.
Have a good night or good day.